What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for a Saturday fantasy football Q&A. Here to just help you out with any fantasy football lineup questions that you have for me. I'm going to help you set your lineups and help you get prepared and ready for your upcoming matchup in fantasy football this Sunday. So we already had the Thursday night football game, Dallas Cowboys, Tampa Bay Bucks. Hopefully you started just about everybody in that game because that's probably what you should have done. You probably got a little bit unlucky, as I did in a couple leagues with Mike Evans and potentially as well Ezekiel Elliott, which wasn't the greatest of matchups versus the Bucks run defense. But regardless, we're going to get you prepared for your fantasy football leagues this weekend. So get in the chat and let me know if you have any questions about fantasy football and about anything really regarding the NFL, whether that's betting. Maybe you have some questions about my best bets this weekend. If you guys haven't already, make sure you do check out the Patron on the BLV because we do have my best bets over there, as well as a lot of other stuff and content that you don't see on YouTube. In this video, I'm also going to get on Underdog Fantasy, and I'm going to give you some rivals and over-under things that I like because I've been over there and I've been playing a lot and I've been really intrigued with how that's going to go. And I'm not usually a huge daily fantasy guy, so this is a different way, I think, of playing daily fantasy. You know, you're not really in a tournament. You're not really in a matchup with anybody. It's kind of like a game that you play just versus Underdog Fantasy. So we're going to get into that, and I'm going to show you some of them that I like on there. And remember, guys, I posted it in the live chat as well, that you have to get on Underdog Fantasy before the 13th because the 13th is the last day that you can get $25 free on Underdog. So you use the code BLV, get that $25, and you can use it on the matchups this weekend. Underdog Fantasy, they call it the Pick'em, and you can go totals over under. Let's say you could say Jerry Jeudy's going to have over 50.5 yards, for an example. I think a real one is actually like Chase Claypool over 49.5. So you could use that and bet the over, bet the under on Underdog. So make sure you check that out, and I'll also show you examples later on in the video. But let's get in the chat. Let's get it rolling. Let's get some fantasy questions going. So Durkant's in the chat. Lenny's in the chat. They just say, what's up? What's going on, guys? In terms of the fantasy stardom and situm this year, I probably won't be doing it in the traditional fashion. We'll see how the stardom situm Q&A goes today. But for me, I think it's just a video every year that I've been doing that I just constantly rather am late doing, or I just kind of dread doing week to week because it just kind of gets stale for me. So I just prefer to spend my time doing other content and other videos. So I'm not going to be doing the stardom situm this year. So what's going to happen is Durkant's going to do it on Instagram. So if you guys are intrigued still for who to start, who to sit, Durkant knows the matchups across the board in the NFL. He plays fantasy himself. So make sure you do give us a follow on Instagram so that you can check that out, and we'll put up some graphics so it's easy for you guys. Just go to Instagram, follow us at TheBottomLineView, and you can get Durkant's starts and sits each and every week on Instagram. All right? So make sure you follow us there. Mr. Murder says, going bold, starting Goff tomorrow. I hope you're not. I hope not. I mean, I don't know what your options are, but I hope you're not starting Jared Goff tomorrow. I mean, that's probably not the best idea in the world. Pure Breed says Jerry Jeudy, Raheem Mostert, or Emmanuel Sanders in the slot. So I assume, I don't know what type of league this is. Guys, if you can give me the information in terms of what type of league, is it PPR? Is it half PPR? Is it standard? Let me know in the comments when you do provide your questions if you can. I would probably in most formats go with Raheem Mostert in that scenario. I think in all formats I would go with Raheem Mostert. He's playing the Detroit Lions. The Lions defense was the worst, I believe, or second worst versus running backs last year, one or the other. This year, they should be a little bit improved in that regard, but I don't think too much improved. So I like Raheem Mostert over Jerry Jeudy, which is probably the two that I would debate there at all. But I would go with Raheem Mostert because he could potentially have a huge game that wins you the week. I don't really see that as much with Jerry Jeudy. Next, you have Lenny, who says, Mitch, am I starting Rondale Moore or Terrace Marshall Jr. full PPR? See, that's what you got to do, just like Lenny. Both weak cornerback matchups. That's a good question, actually. You know what? I think I would go... It depends on your lineup. I would say Terrace Marshall Jr. probably has higher upside in his matchup because he plays the Jets. He's likely going to be playing in the slot a lot from what I've seen during the preseason. I don't think they're taking him off the field very much. I'd probably go with Terrace Marshall, but I could see both kind of popping off a little bit in week one and setting a statement out there. I think Rondale Moore is going to get more manufactured touches, so if you want to lean towards the safe play, I think Moore is probably more so that, but I could see Marshall having more upside in his matchup because he plays the Jets corners who are just absolutely dreadful. I like to watch the NFL, says, should I start Jonathan Taylor? I would say yes, you should start Jonathan Taylor unless you have like an absolutely loaded team. You probably picked him in the first or second round, which means you got to play him. The matchup isn't all that bad either. He plays Seattle. While they're a good run defense, I don't think it's like a must-sit type matchup. It's certainly not the Bucs. Durkant says Humphreys or Duvernay for PPR. This is a stretch, bro. I don't know where you're playing at that you're deciding between Adam Humphreys and Duvernay. But my answer there would be neither. But personally, if I was to choose, I'd probably go with Adam Humphreys because I don't know the role for Duvernay, to be honest with you. I know Sammy Watkins and Marquise Brown are likely to play as the starting receivers. Nick Boyle's out, so maybe that means more 3 receiver sets, but they also have that rookie, I believe his name's Wallace, who could play. So I'm not sure the role for Duvernay, so I can't really give you a great answer there. But for Humphreys, I believe he'll be playing in the slot because there will be no Curtis Samuel. So from what I saw in the preseason, he's one of the starting 3 receivers without Samuel out there. So I'd go with him if I had to. Sports Today, should I start Gibson or Swift? I'd go with Gibson. I think Swift's injury definitely is one that bugs me a little bit this week, and Gibson feels like a pretty safe play. The Chargers are also not great versus the run. Swift is playing the Niners, which I feel like they're going to be getting blown out for a majority of that game. To be honest with you, you should definitely start Jonathan Taylor, says Michael. It's a no-brainer. Lenny says, Mitch, who is your number 1 rookie receiver this year? I think it's probably going to be Devontae Smith, but who was the other one that I'm thinking that could... Oh, Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore could be the one to supplant Smith if it doesn't go Devontae Smith's way, like let's say he gets hurt or something. But I think as long as he stays healthy and Jalen Hurts is his quarterback, I think Devontae Smith is going to be the locked and loaded number 1 rookie receiver this year. But I think Elijah Moore might give him a run for his money, especially if Jamison Crowder continues to miss games like he is in week 1. I like to watch the NFL, says, should I start DK or Michael Pittman? I think that's quite obvious. I'd go with DK Metcalf there. Whoop that ass, says Henderson or Edmonds. I would go with Edmonds, personally. I like the matchup versus the Titans. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I think if the Cardinals fall behind, that means Edmonds plays more because he's more the receiving back. Edmonds is listed as number 1 on the depth chart. He's the go-to guy. He's the lead back. Henderson, on the other hand, I'm not sure how they're going to divide the touches between him and Sony Michel. The Bears are a pretty good run defense. While Henderson could get his in the receiving game, I think Edmonds is a better option in that regard, so I'd go with Edmonds. Michael says Smith is a recreation of DeAndre Hopkins. Is he? I mean, I feel like they play a little bit different. I've heard a lot of Marvin Harrison comparisons there. Guys, make sure if you do have a question to get in the chat and let them rip, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. And we're going to get to probably around 3:20, 3:30 Pacific. We're going to get to the Underdog pick'ems, the rival picks, the over-under picks. I'm excited about that, and you guys can head over to Underdog. Make sure you do before September 13th. Use the code BLV so you get that $20, right? Even if you're not going to use it right now, you can use it down the road. Get that $25 under your belt. Lump Nubs says Myers, Gage, or Golladay for wide receiver 2 PPR. I'm projected to lose by 30, okay? So I assume you probably played like one of the Cowboys receivers or AB or Brady or somebody. So you have Myers, Gage, or Golladay. Personally, as much as Golladay probably has the most upside in that matchup, I'm very nervous about Golladay. He's playing one of the best secondaries in football this week, and I don't know how healthy he is. So even though Golladay is probably the one that if you want the upside, you go with, I would say Russell Gage is the play for me because the Eagles don't really have great corners. You know, Darius Slay is their best corner, but he'll likely be playing on Calvin Ridley a majority of the time. So that leaves Russell Gage to probably pick on Steven Nelson or even Avonte Maddox in the slot. So I think Gage is probably the one that offers the most upside with a good matchup there. I like Jacoby Myers as a safer option, but he does play Miami secondary, and I don't think New England's going to be passing a lot this week. So I'd probably go with Russell Gage there, to be honest with you. Tyler's World says, do I just have to talk about fantasy football? No, bro, you can talk about whatever you want. Lenny says, is Jalen Richard a solid stash in full PPR if Jacobs or Drake go out with injury? 20-man league. Lenny, honestly, I don't have a lot of experience in 20-man leagues other than the BLV league, so I'm kind of new in that format. But if you think so, go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't really know what the running back situation's looking like in the 20-man leagues. I don't really see him being relevant unless one of them gets hurt, like you say there. And, you know, like, at the most, I feel like he's a PPR third down type of back. But I feel like if it's Kenyon Drake, like, Kenyon Drake would have to get hurt, right? Because I think if Kenyon Drake is the one that's healthy, he becomes a 3-down back for the Raiders. And I don't think Richard is still very relevant. So honestly, I'd be leaning towards no, he's not a great stash. But you're a Raiders fan, so I mean, you use your own logic and opinion on that. I just feel like if Jacobs is the lone back, Drake gets hurt, Richard could become interesting. But if Jacobs is the one to get hurt, then I still don't think Richard is all that relevant because he's mostly a receiver. Pure Breed says DJ Chark or Raheem Mostert. I'd go with Mostert all day there. Durkant says Smith is Stephon Diggs. Rendon says, should I trade Swift and Jamar Chase for Antonio Gibson? Depends who you have at wide receiver, but I'd definitely consider that, to be honest. But I do think Swift will be better, later in the year. Uncle Scary says standard Ayuk or DJ Moore. Oof, that's tough. Ayuk's injury is a little scary. So, like, maybe that's the deciding factor there because Ayuk has had an injury over the past week or two. So, if that's the deciding factor, you want to lean on that. They both have great matchups. There's no doubt about it. So, I don't think you can go wrong either way, Uncle Scary, but I'm going to go with DJ Moore there just because of Ayuk's questionable injury. Michael says, should you start Golladay or Slayton as the number one receiver for the Giants? I think you would go with Golladay there over Slayton. Qui-Gon says, hey man, I have a question to ask real quick. I'm in a standard league and need a quarterback too, since I have Fields on the bench. I have Donald, I assume you mean Darnold, as my main target, but have Matt Ryan, Zach Wilson, Big Ben, and Wentz. I would go with Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's an excellent start this week. I think he'll actually finish as a top 15, maybe top 12 quarterback this week versus the Eagles. Oh, okay, so wait, I'm confused. You're targeting Darnold as your main target. Okay, so yeah, I would go Matt Ryan, then Sam Darnold, then Zach Wilson, then Big Ben, then Wentz. That would be my order. Anish says, Who should I start, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson? That's close. I think Aaron Rodgers. But that one's really close. I think they'll end up being about the same. Tyson Williamson or David Montgomery, Robert Woods or Tyler Lockett, says, I believe it's Meister. Williamson or David Montgomery. I think you got to go with Montgomery there. Robert Woods or Lockett. I would go with Robbie Woods. Bobby Trees. Rendon says Judy or Tyler Boyd. Ooh, I would go with Boyd, personally. Sports Today says Stafford or Burrow. Stafford for sure. Tyler's World says, will you be streaming tomorrow? Yes, I will be streaming tomorrow. I'll be doing, let me see. I actually got to put a poll tonight, so that reminds me. I got to write that down. I'm going to put a poll tonight. If you guys have any recommendations, I'll put the ones that you guys recommend in the chat, and then I'll write them down and I'll put them on the poll. So I'll put that in the community tab for you guys. I'll probably do Patriots, Dolphins, and at the same time Chiefs, Browns. That's probably what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to do the first games. I might. We'll see. Maybe I'll just do it, do back-to-back. I could do that for sure, but I probably won't be doing Sunday night just because I don't think that game's going to be all that exciting. So I probably won't be doing Sunday night. But I probably will do some of the other action there. Anish says, I have DK Metcalf and Tyreek Hill on my fantasy team. Will I win a lot of games? I would assume so, yes. Lenny says, are we trading Zeke after week 1? No. Okay, so this is a key thing here. I think you should trade for Zeke if you can. Obviously, don't go out of your way if it's a bad deal for you. But I would trade for Zeke because I'm sure after last year, spending high capital on him, owners are going to be panicked after that performance versus the Bucs. But the Bucs have had the best run defense in the NFL over the past 3 years. This was a game plan specific approach by Dallas to not give the ball to Zeke. So I feel like their over-reliance on the pass was specific to defeating the Bucs. I don't think that's something you can expect going forward. I'd actually expect Dallas and Zeke to have a big running game next week versus the Chargers. So if you were to trade for Zeke at any point this year, right now would probably be the best time to trade for Zeke, not trade away Zeke. Trading away Zeke would be at the, you just got to think of it in terms of peak value and minimum value. And in terms of his absolute baseline value, it's never going to get lower than it is right now because of the matchup that he just faced. Before or after says start or sit DeAndre Swift or Golladay. I'd go with Swift. Michael says start Robbie or DJ. Ooh, I'd probably go DJ, but definitely could go either way because they're on the same team. Connor says Odell or Chase Edmonds. I'd go with Edmonds there. I think Odell is still dealing with the injury, and I think they're going to play him, but take it slow. Qui-Gon says, rate my receiving core. Calvin Ridley, Julio, CD, Waller. This is a standard league. That's a great receiving core, bro. You don't even got to ask. I think you know that already. Michael says Tyler Boyd or Tyler Lockett. Did I already answer that? Or maybe it was for somebody else. Probably Lockett. Low Bellow says I had Rob Gronkowski and Antonio Brown on my bench in one of my leagues. Damn. Anish says, will James Robinson be a top 5 fantasy running back? Maybe this week, but not the whole year. He does play the Texans this week, so he might be pretty damn good this week. Chiefs, Browns, Bills, Steelers, says Sports Today. He says you got to stream Bucks Patriots. That's not this week. Anish says, will DK have a monster game against the Colts because they don't have anyone in the secondary to stop a guy like DK Metcalf? He should. Xavier Rhodes, I believe, is out. So I would expect DK and Lockett to have fairly good games. Jason says Brandon Ayuk or Trey Sermon. I'd go with Ayuk. I just think he's more of a for sure thing, Jason. especially in PPR. Uncle Scary says, I'm offering Miles Sanders, Sutton, and Darrell Henderson for Zeke. Too much. Probably. I mean, you're giving up two. It depends who your other running back is, but you're giving up two RB2s and a receiver 3, in my opinion, for one running back. So that does feel like a lot. But hey, it depends on your strength of your roster. If you have another great running back, then hey, go for it. Is this a good receiving core? Diggs, D-Hop, and Julio. Yes, guys, come on. You got like 2 of the top 5 and another good player, so. Any more questions? Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. If you guys haven't already, make sure you do check out Underdog Fantasy. Again, link is in the description. I'm letting you guys know right now because the offer ends on September 13th. So you got to get it right now, man. I'm just telling you. You got to get it right now. Use the code BLV. Get a free $25 with a deposit of $10. You can use that towards, we're going to take a look at the pick'ems. All right, you can use that towards the rivals, the over-unders. This is a different way to play daily fantasy. It's my new way of playing daily fantasy. I've already put together 3 different parlays that I'll show you guys that I'm interested in. So check out that, stick around for that, and we can hopefully make some money on Underdog. So use the code BLV, get it before September 13th. I'm just letting you guys know I'm trying to help you guys out here. Get some free money. All right. Connor says, how do you think Julio will play this year? I think Julio will be really good when he plays, but sporadic, because I don't think he's going to be playing the full schedule. I don't think he's going to be playing all of the games, just to be honest with you. I think there's going to be games where he might frustrate you because you don't know if he's going to play, you don't know if he's going to sit. So I think he's one of those guys that is just going to kind of be a frustrating fantasy guy. But I think he's going to be good. Like, you can rely on him when he's going to play. He's going to be good. That's how I see it. All right. Who would you start, T. Higgins or Marvin Jones Jr.? T. Higgins. Lenny says, imagine if I could have drafted Brandon Ayuk and Chris Godwin in 2 different 20-man leagues. Just imagine. Yeah, he definitely did. Before After says, what do you think about Kyle Pitts' fantasy value? I think he's going to have a great week 1, and that's going to help his value a lot. Is the ESPN fantasy trade assistant stupid? Honestly, I only think I have 1 league on ESPN, so I'm not too familiar with it, to be honest with you. So I don't even really know, and I don't really look at the assistant when I do trades. So I just do my trades. Anish says, is Julio a bit overrated because people have him in the top 7 receivers, but he still has injury issues? Well, I think it's a different thing. You know, like, if you have him in the top 7 in real life, I think that's different than putting him in the top 7 in fantasy. He's definitely not a top 7 fantasy receiver, but in terms of real life ability, when he plays, he's still one of the best receivers in football. Before After says, will Julio be thrown to in the end zone? Probably not, because they like to run Derrick Henry and they like A.J. Brown. I would think he'd be the 3rd option in that regard. Michael says, who would you start, Allen Robinson or Kenny Golladay? Definitely Allen Robinson. Pure Breed says, Kirk Cousins or Justin Herbert? Probably Cousins, but that's probably Cousins. I think he's safer. Has Matt Ryan ever thrown to or had good tight ends? Yes, he had Tony Gonzalez in the early 2010s, who was pretty successful with him. Who would you start, Melvin Gordon or Tyshawn Williams as our RB2? I have Cook as RB1. I'd probably start... Ooh, that's a good one. I don't really know the role Williams is going to have. I'd assume he'll be the starter. So I think I'm going to lean towards him because I think they're both going to split, and I think Melvin Gordon's going to split with Javonte, and I don't like the matchup versus the Giants. I like the matchup versus the Raiders more, so I'll go with Williams there. Yeah, I know Allen Robinson's going to have Ramsey, but it doesn't matter. Robinson will get his. Julio or Odell? I'd go with Julio. All right, guys. I'll continue to answer your questions, but right now I'm going to do some of these Underdog Fantasy Pick'ems so I can show you what it's like and show you how it works. So let's just share my screen here. And let's get to it. All right. I got... Where is it? Okay. I'll share my screen now. Here we are. Underdog Fantasy. So this is what it looks like, guys. So this is the pick'em screen. So you got over, under, and you got rivals. And then on the right side, you have the multiplier of what your picks are going to do, right? So this is basically a different way to play fantasy football. So here, like Alvin Kamara, 112.5 rushing receiving yards, right? So if you think he's going to go under, you pick under. If you think he's going to go over, you press over. So let's just say I think he's going to go over because the Saints are going to overpower the Packers, whatever, right? And then I think McCaffrey's going to go over versus the Jets because he's missed Christian McCaffrey. All right, so I have two bets right there with those two players, right? So if I enter my amount, let's say it's $10, that means I'd win $30 on that because it's times 3, right? And the more that you add to it, Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, and Allen, then you get a times 20. I got $10 my amount, I could win 200, right? So depending on the entry amount and depending on the multiplier and depending on how many you stack together is how much you will ultimately win. Now, this past week, I already did 3 of these things. I did one for like $10. I did 2 for like $50, I believe. And I'll just show you. So these are my live ones right here. So these are the ones that I like. So let's start with this one. This is a $7 one that I did. And this is over-unders. And you can also throw in rivals. I'll show you how rivals works as well. This is all on Underdog Fantasy. Again, guys, use the link in the description. Use the code BLV, and you'll be able to win some money, all right? Let me actually show. I didn't realize that my camera wasn't on, so let's put my camera on. All right, there we go. So we have 5 picks here for $140. So this is a $7 entry. I have the potential to win $140. So Zach Moss, I got under 29.5 yards. I don't think the Bills are going to run the ball at all. I think it's going to be an even split between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. And I think Devin Singletary is going to get more play because he was the starter during preseason. He's also the pass-catching back. I think the Bills are going to be passing more and rushing less. So I went with Singletary there. So basically, I have him going under 30 yards in the game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got Melvin Gordon under 61 total yards versus the Giants because, like I said, I think he's going to be splitting with Javonte Williams. And I don't think the Giants, on the ground, they have a great run defense, especially with those big boys, Leonard Williams, and those guys up front, Dexter Lawrence. So I don't think Melvin Gordon's going to have a ton of play. And I do see them splitting pass down reps as well because Javonte is also pretty capable. I got under 17.5 points for Tua versus the Patriots. Patriots have a good pass defense, one of the best in football, and it's in New England. I've got Chase Edmonds over 65.5, and you guys can also use these to set your lineups, right? Because if you see something that I have here, if it's under, I likely have them as a sit, and if it's over, I likely have them as a start. So that's just a recommendation for you there. Chase Edmonds, 65.5 total yards, and then I took Laviska Shenault to have more yards than Robinson, plus 37.5 yards. So right there, I just took I think Chenault's going to have 70 to 100 yards. I just don't think James Robinson's going to have 150 yards in this game. So taking the 37.5. That's quite a bit of yards. I think they'll both be involved quite a bit and probably both be starts for your fantasy lineups. The next one is I got Jared Goff under 15.5 fantasy points. That's pretty easy to see why. Cortland Sutton under 53.5 because I think he'll see a lot of James Bradbury this week. Marquise Callaway under 54.5 because I think you'll see a lot of Alexander. Cole Beasley over 46.5 because the Steelers don't have a great nickel corner. And I took Zach Wilson to score more points plus 1.45 than Sam Darnold. I think they'll be trailing for a lot of the game. That will help Zach Wilson. Then my final one, I got Devontae Smith over 4 receptions. Jamar Chase under 48.5 receiving yards. Chase Claypool over 49.5 receiving yards. Cole Beasley over 46.5 again. And then I chose Jerry Jeudy to have more yards than Cortland Sutton. So those are my pick'ems and my parlays for Underdog Fantasy this week. You guys can go check it out. Use the link in the description. Use the code BLV to get that free $25 before September 13th. All right? I'll also show you how the Rivals works, and then I'll answer the rest of your questions here. So the Rivals is basically like this. So this is the one that I had in my lineup. So, like, this is an example. You got Jamar Chase. It's basically like betting on the game, right? But you're only betting on like 2 players. So instead of betting on the Bengals +3 over the Vikings, you're betting on Jamar Chase plus 30.5 yards over Justin Jefferson, if that makes sense. So that's how it works on Underdog. It's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. You can bet on one of them. You can bet on 3 of them, 5, whatever you want, right? Whatever you're confident in would be my recommendation. They also have other sports too. So if you're a soccer fan, like you can bet on soccer games, like who will have more shots in the game. You can bet on baseball. You can bet on golf. You can bet on basketball, hockey when that gets started. But they've got everything covered. So make sure you do check out Underdog Fantasy. And let's answer the rest of your questions here. All right, guys. Let's roll. So Anish says, who will be the NFL's most improved players in terms of fantasy? Improved player in terms of fantasy. Improved. I'm thinking of that word improved and trying to figure out who it will be. It's a good question, man. Improved. Jerry Jeudy. Let's go with Jerry Jeudy. That's the first one that came to my mind. D Swift or Jacoby Myers? PPR. Need one of them for my flex. That's tough, actually. I think probably Swift, but it's closer than I think you would think. I'm going to say Swift, but I think it's kind of close. Is it Yo Neals? Says, best QB this weekend, Mahomes, Murray, Russell Wilson, or Josh Allen? I'm going to eliminate Murray from that. Russell Wilson from that. I think it's between Allen and Mahomes. I'd probably go with Mahomes. Higbee, Jonnu, Tonyan, or Goddard? Ooh. I kind of like 3 of them there. I don't really like Goddard because I don't know the situation as much in Philadelphia, and I'm not really confident in it. But I like Higbee, I like Jonnu, and I like Tonyan. If I had to give you one, I'm gonna go on a limb and I'm gonna say it's gonna be Jonnu, but that's real tough. Like, I think you could start 3 of those guys and probably still have a pretty good game. I think Jonnu's gonna have a good game. And I think Tonyan might score a touchdown. I think Higbee might score a touchdown as well. So Turtle says 2 of Paris Campbell, Chris Connolly, and Rondell Moore. I'd go with Campbell and Moore. Jason says hold Trey Lance over players like T. Marshall, Rondell Moore, A.J. Dillon with his current winning upside. Ooh. Stafford is your current quarterback. I would honestly probably drop him for A.J. Dillon or Marshall. I have the same scenario in one of my leagues. I picked Lance with the last pick. I didn't think he would still be there at that point. And I have Josh Allen. So you know, like I'm going to be considering dropping Trey Lance for the next couple of weeks if somebody pops up, right? So that's a similar place I'm at, Jason. I would probably pick up A.J. Dillon, Marshall for sure, or Rondell Moore, like any of the guys that you think, because those are all three guys that, just for example, are taken in my league that I'm in, that I have Trey Lance in, that I'd probably prefer them over him just because of their upside. I think A.J. Dillon's the most valuable out of all of them, though. James Jones says Stafford or Lawrence. I'd go with Stafford for sure. Yanil says Niners running back or Ravens running back. I'd go with Niners. Yo Nails? Okay. Before, after, if Mostert stays healthy this year, could he be a solid running back flex? I think he could be more than that. I think he could be an RB2 weekly. Ramsey or Gilmore? I'd go with Ramsey there. Big Bub says Stafford or Hurts. Stafford, but that's close. Very close. I like both of them. Big Bub says OBJ or Swift. I'm going to go with Swift just because of OBJ's injury, and I think Swift's probably going to be cleared, get more touches. Low Bello says, do you think Gronk and AB will be consistent fantasy starters? I think Gronk will be, because I think now that we just saw his week one, he was by far the most utilized tight end for them. And Brady really loves him. And when you look at the fantasy landscape for tight ends, it's not a good one. So I would say that Gronk is going to be a top 12 tight end finish this year. So I would say he's probably startable every week. And AB, I think, will be a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2, maybe even. I would slow the roll in terms of him being the best Bucs receiver. That might actually end up being Godwin on a consistent basis, but Evans is going to get his. You know, I feel like just with that Bucs offense, you want to start a bunch of guys in the receiving game because they're all going to get theirs in these games. Like, they're going to all pop off in certain games. Evans will have a big game probably next week. AB might have another big game. You know, Gronk's going to have a big game. Godwin's going to have a game. Scotty Miller might even have a game once in a while. Like, these guys are going to have games consistently. Like, 2 of them are probably going to have great games every week. And you just don't know which one it's going to be. Big Bob says, Higbee or Tonyan for a different league. I'm leaning towards Tonyan, bro. But it's close for sure. 2 of the 3, Boyd, Chark, and OBJ. I would recommend seeing the reports for OBJ before starting him tomorrow, but I'd definitely start Boyd. But I think it's between Chark and OBJ, and I was never a Chark guy this offseason, so personally I lean towards OBJ even with the injury status. But I would definitely make sure you check that injury report before you start any of them. Yo Nails says, what do you think of the quarterbacks like Teddy Bridgewater or Garoppolo this season? They both have playmakers. Teddy Bridgewater or Garoppolo? I don't really like either of them in fantasy. I think they're low ceiling guys. Tyler's World says, to me, DeAndre Hopkins is the best. I don't think so, but that's your opinion. All right, guys. Well, I think that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. Again, guys, make sure you do check out Underdog Fantasy. Link is in the description. Use the code BLV. Go play some of those over-unders. Go play some of those rivals games. We will see you tomorrow for the live streams. We've got Dolphins and Pats on deck. We'll probably be here early to do a game in the AM for me, which would be the 10 a.m. start, but the 1 Eastern start for some of you. Maybe even the Central start at 12 noon. And I won't be doing Sunday night, but I'll be doing a little bit of Chiefs Browns. I'll be doing a little bit of Patriots Dolphins, and I'll probably be doing a game early. Probably the Bills Steelers, maybe a different game. We'll see. But thanks, guys, for joining me. Hopefully you do well in your fantasy leagues this week, and we will be back next week to answer any questions that you do have. Also, make sure you follow us on Instagram for Durkant's weekly Stardom and Situm over there. All right, it's Mitch. Peace.